Sissy Zoller is a Dallas newcomer. She recently moved here from New York City. A talkative writer, storytelling is Sissy's art form of choice. While living in New York, she participated in several storytelling events. This year, she made her local storytelling debut at Oral Fixation at the Wiley and Texas Theaters.
A little over a year ago, I got married for the first time at the age of 43. The vast majority of my friends had gotten married in years right after college. I, however, had a series of long-term relationships that in my 20s mostly ended with me accusing them of just wanting to get married and knowing I wasn't the right person for them. In my 30s and into my 40s, relationships generally ended with me not wanting to convince someone to marry me. If I had to talk them into it, it was going to be a mistake. I needed my husband to be someone who unquestionably wanted the job. And when I met him, it would feel like all the craziness of being single longer than I imagined I would all make sense. That it was all leading to this, and it couldn't have happened any other way. Basher, the Jewish term for soulmate, has always been a problematic concept for me. It was disheartening for me to believe that there was one person in the universe who I was meant to be with, and somehow I had to line my life just right for him to appear. At the same time, I had the sense that God was intervening over and over again to prevent me from marrying the wrong person. Overly loyal, generally accommodating, and relentlessly optimistic, I often stayed in relationships that weren't right for me for far too long. Then things would get to a critical point, and it was as if God himself came down and snuffed them out with his big thumb, giving me no choice but to move on. One day, I went on Facebook and saw a post from a woman I'd got to know named Orly. She hosted these Energy of the Month classes at a conference room downtown that had amazing views of the city. The classes were taught by Rabbi Dov Pinson, a scholar and Kabbalist who focused on the hidden and revealed aspects of Torah. Orly also regularly posted spiritual messages on Facebook. She was part Oprah, part Orthodox. Orly's Facebook post said she was gathering a group of 13 single women to recite Psalm 13 together 13 times for 13 days in a row with the goal of bringing us our Basher. I wasn't about to publicly join the group and have it come up in my newsfeed, Sissy just joined single women looking for their Basher. But I was intrigued. I private messaged Orly and arranged to bring it on the group's conference call the following afternoon, which happened to be a snow day in New York City. For the first few minutes, it was just me and this woman, Esther, on the phone. She was 38, had never been married, and she was living in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. In her ultra-Orthodox Jewish community, where people get married as early as 18, being single at age 38 was a real problem. For my adorable little apartment in the artsy, liberal West Village, it would have been perfectly acceptable for me to never get married. I imagine Esther needed all the help she could get. If my prayers would help her, and maybe even find my husband too, I was game. Finally, Orly got on the conference call apologizing for the 10 other women who didn't make it on the call that day, and the three of us recited Psalm 13 together in Hebrew. Psalm 13 is a plea to God asking, "How long, O Lord, will you endlessly forget me? How long will you hide your face from me?" And ends with trusting in God's kindness that my heart will exult in salvation at the right time. Orly said the group would be calling in at the same time for the next 12 days. I couldn't exactly call in from my cubicle at work, so I vowed to continue on my own, and I completed the 13 days saying Psalm 13 13 times in a row, keeping Orly, Esther, and those other 10 single women in mind. A few weeks later, I had to travel to Houston for work, and I went to Dallas for the weekend first to see Susan, my best friend from college. Over a swirl margarita, I told her that if she could achieve the heroic task of finding my husband, I'd move there. I told her to find me somebody Jewy, who's interested in the thing I'm interested in. And she thought of this guy David, who she'd known for years. He was out of town, so she texted him about me. The next day, which happened to be Super Bowl Sunday, I left for Houston, and when I landed in the airport, there was a voicemail from David. I called him back from the hotel. I figured no guy was going to call me back during the Super Bowl. A few minutes later, he called me back, and we had a nice conversation about Jewy stuff. He said he was coming to New York at the end of the month, and we can meet then. We kept in touch over the next few weeks, but not in one of those build-up kind of expectations way. It was like I was talking to a new friend of mine, an old friend of my friend Susan. Dave and I met in New York and had a great time together and started dating long distance. By the next year, Super Bowl Sunday, we were already married and back in New York together, packing up my apartment to move to Dallas. As I was cleaning out my desk, I found the piece of paper with Psalm 13. They tallied my count, saying it 13 times for 13 days, and I couldn't believe my eyes. The last day I recited Psalm 13 was January 19th, 2013, 1 year to the day of our wedding day, January 19th, 2014. Over our first year of marriage, I've told that story many times over Shabbat dinners or as inspiration for somebody who's single and still looking. To me, it was an example of the unexpected power of prayer and that some things really are meant to be. As I prepared to tell the story for Learning Fest, I looked at the piece of paper with my psalm tally again, and I noticed that the last day I recited it was not actually our wedding day, January 19th, 2013, but it was a couple days before, January 11th, 2013. Close, but not as supernatural. The truth could really ruin a great story. But the truth is, I don't need a piece of paper with a date on it to tell me that David is my soulmate. That fact is reflected to me in the day-to-day fun we have, the values we share, how we face challenges, support each other's dreams, and grow together day after day. I'm forever grateful to Orly, God, and of course Susan, for bringing me and David together, and for helping me believe that some things really are beshared.